In a decision that has sent shockwaves through the global economy, the United States Supreme Court has overturned the controversial tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump, declaring them an unconstitutional overreach of executive power. This verdict is a seismic event for international trade, affecting businesses, governments, and consumers worldwide. The decision dismantles a key pillar of the Trump administration's economic policy, reshaping supply chains and diplomatic relations. For nearly a year, these tariffs have added billions to the cost of imported goods, impacting everyone from CEOs to families at the grocery store. The legal battle was a fundamental test of the U.S. Constitution's separation of powers, pitting presidential authority against Congress's power to levy taxes. With the court's definitive answer, the world is watching to see how fractured global trade will be rebuilt. Markets are already reacting, and companies that paid these steep import taxes may see massive refunds. The ruling forces a complete reevaluation of America's approach to international commerce and its relationships with trading partners. The story of the Trump tariffs has reached its dramatic climax, but the story of its aftermath is only just beginning. To understand today's ruling, we must look back at how these tariffs began. In early 2025, the Trump administration rolled out sweeping duties on imported goods, far broader than those of his first term. These reciprocal tariffs targeted most nations, aiming to force them to lower their own taxes on U.S. products. The policy was enacted without new legislation or congressional approval, sparking immediate controversy and legal challenges. The administration also introduced fentanyl tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, linking trade policy to the opioid crisis, a move many legal scholars found dubious. Critics argued this was a misuse of economic leverage and an attempt to bypass established diplomatic channels. The core controversy was the method. President Trump used executive authority to impose what were, in effect, massive new taxes, sidestepping Congress's explicit constitutional power. This unilateral action disrupted global supply chains and triggered a multi-front trade war as other nations retaliated. The economic landscape became a battlefield of escalating duties and political tensions. Amid this turmoil, a coalition of businesses took their fight to the courts, setting the stage for today's historic legal showdown. The legal battle over the tariffs was a direct conflict over the U.S. Constitution. Major importers like Costco led lawsuits, arguing the president cannot impose taxes on foreign goods without Congress. Their case pointed to Article 1, Section 8, which gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate commerce and levy tariffs. The administration argued for broad executive authority, citing national security and historical precedent. Lower courts consistently sided with Congress's role, reinforcing the separation of powers. The Supreme Court's decision would determine whether future presidents could wield tariffs unilaterally, or if Congress would retain this crucial check. Today, the justices have provided a decisive answer. In a landmark 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court struck down the Trump administration's tariffs. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that the president's unilateral tariffs infringed on powers granted to Congress by the Constitution. The ruling affirms that only Congress can levy taxes and duties, not the executive branch. The court dismantled the administration's national security arguments, setting a precedent that future presidents cannot use tariffs as a policy tool without congressional approval. The decision is a resounding victory for American businesses and a major blow to the administration's trade agenda. Effective immediately, Customs and Border Protection must stop collecting these duties. The ruling reaffirms the separation of powers and the deliberate legislative process for taxation. The legal battle is over. Now, attention turns to the practical consequences. The Supreme Court's decision triggered a global market realignment. U.S. and international stock markets surged as investors welcomed the end of economic uncertainty. The dollar weakened slightly, reflecting expectations of lower import costs and shifting trade balances. International leaders, especially in Canada, Mexico, the EU, and China, welcomed the ruling and are expected to roll back retaliatory tariffs. U.S. exporters in agriculture and manufacturing could see significant benefits. However, domestic industries like steel and aluminum, once shielded by tariffs, now face renewed competition. The administration must find new ways to support these sectors, possibly through legislation or subsidies. The ruling restores predictability to global trade, allowing businesses to plan with greater confidence. The era of sudden unilateral tariff changes is over. With the tariffs declared illegal, the pressing question is what happens to the $200 billion already collected. Legal precedent suggests this money should be refunded to the companies that paid it. Thousands of businesses, from retail giants to small importers, have already filed claims for reimbursement. The government now faces the logistical challenge of processing these claims and finding funds for the refunds. This payout creates a significant fiscal challenge for the U.S. Treasury, potentially impacting federal spending or the national debt. For companies, these refunds could be a lifeline, providing cash to invest, hire, or lower prices. For some small businesses, the refunds could mean survival. The financial relief will be immediate and substantial, injecting stimulus into the corporate sector and the broader economy. The administration has yet to announce how it will manage this massive liability. The refund process will dominate headlines in the months ahead. Legal scholars hail the ruling as a crucial defense of the constitutional order. Professor Lawrence Tribe calls it a landmark victory for the rule of law and the separation of powers. Economists like Dr. Julia Coronado say removing the tariffs is like taking the brakes off the global economy, lowering costs, reducing inflation, and easing international tensions. Some policy analysts warn the decision removes a vital tool for confronting unfair trade practices, especially with countries like China. They argue Congress may be too slow to respond to fast-moving global challenges. Most experts agree the ruling shifts responsibility for trade policy to Congress. As one former U.S. trade representative put it, the ball is now in Congress's court. The decision forces a debate about America's trade strategy and empowers the legislative branch to lead. The future of U.S. trade policy will be forged through debate and compromise, not executive order. This is a pivotal moment for how America engages with the world. The tariffs' impact was felt far beyond legal and economic circles. It hit businesses and families directly. Executives spent the past year rerouting supply chains, renegotiating contracts, and making tough decisions about costs. Small business owners, like a bicycle shop importing parts from Asia, faced devastating cost increases and tough choices about raising prices or absorbing losses. The removal of tariffs and potential refunds offer immediate relief, especially for small businesses. Ultimately, much of the tariff cost was passed to consumers, raising prices on everyday goods and stretching family budgets. The end of the tariffs should gradually lower prices for many imports, easing household finances. This human dimension is crucial. The trade war's costs were real for businesses and families alike. The legal and political battle was, at its heart, about who should bear that burden. Today's decision shifts the landscape, alleviating pressure on importers and consumers. It's a powerful reminder of how decisions in Washington shape lives everywhere. The Supreme Court's decision ends a contentious chapter in American history and opens a new one for global trade. The immediate future will be dominated by the cessation of tariff collection, the unwinding of retaliatory measures, and the massive refund process. The ruling powerfully reaffirms that Congress, not the president, sets trade policy and imposes taxes. This restores a critical check on executive power and promises a more stable, predictable trade environment. Future trade disputes are now more likely to be resolved through legislation and diplomacy, not unilateral action. The issues the tariffs sought to address, unfair competition, domestic industry protection, remain real, but solutions must come through the democratic process. Congress now bears the responsibility to craft a coherent, forward-looking trade strategy. The past year has shown how deeply trade policy affects daily life and the importance of constitutional checks and balances. The challenge now is to stay engaged and demand thoughtful, transparent debate from our leaders as we shape the future of American trade.